Hi folks, welcome to The Modern Spiritualist. My name is Raheem. Today we're going to begin kind of the new phase of this content platform by kind of switching things into the area of manifestation and kind of moving away from divination for now, at least temporarily until I bring it back in like an invigorated way. But I'm going to start this by doing kind of like probably a 4, maybe 5, depends on how I feel, a 4 or 5 part series about using the elements to manifest. And there's a few different ways to go about this because you can actually, of course, use elements through ritual and spell work. And I'll talk about ritual work a bit. But it's also just kind of a matter of like exploring what your relationship is with each of the elements and how you use them in your life, because if there's something that's out of balance, it's of course going to affect your manifestation. And so I'm going to basically talk about them in this order of operation, essentially. So I'm going to start with air because that's where vision lives, and then we're going to move through there in kind of a linear fashion. And in this way you can kind of be able to explore the elements in a way that allows you to move through the process in a way that's really, really effective. I mean, not to say that you can't start from anywhere. I mean, I'm sure you could start with water or fire or whatever your practice is, but I'm just going to kind of take you through the way that I naturally understand it because it makes the most sense to me and it works. I've tested it and it works. It's effective. So, starting with air, which is obviously vision. It's spirit to a certain extent, although I tend to call that ether, and there's some crossover. But I'm going to try to really stick with air in a more practical sense. And so, air is here in our physical material world. Even though it's sort of unseen, we know it's there. And it's where thought lives, it's where intellect lives, it's where ideas live, it's where your vision lives, obviously. It's where communication lives, and it is also where your ego kind of tends to hang out, because the ego kind of works through the mind. And so this is the biggest problem when it comes to manifesting, and it's also just like one of the biggest collective problems in general, because if the ego's running the show and you're identified with it, which we all are to a certain extent, but if you're identified with it in a way that's very, very excessive, that's of course affecting not only what you're manifesting, because words have power and thoughts have power, but also what you think your vision is versus what it probably actually is if you were really in tune with who you truly are, rather than whatever script your ego is running. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit as well. So the reason why I start with air is because you have to have a vision before you can really do anything else. Because if you're doing anything in the world that is operating out of false vision, then everything that you're building or everything that you're trying to manifest through that false vision is, it's going to be a waste of time and energy, right? Because ultimately it's going to fall because it's not really what you want. And it's just shoddy craftsmanship in terms of like if you were trying to, I don't know, say you were building a building, right? And I'm just trying to give you a really practical example of this. If you're building a building that you didn't care about, it was your responsibility, and because you didn't really care, maybe you had all the wrong material, so you're building this like tower or whatever out of like, I don't know, scrap metal and whatever you could get your hands on, because it really doesn't matter that much to you in the first place, and because it doesn't matter, this is where fire comes in. There's no spark, right? There's no spark, and then as you're using materials and kind of moving into earth and kind of building and co-creating this vision, it's kind of already on a false foundation because it's not your truth. And so it's kind of an important step, I think, when you decide that you're gonna choose to consciously manifest in your life. I mean, we're all manifesting all the time. You can't stop manifesting. It's just happening. You're creating your reality all the time. So with that, if you want to manifest in a conscious way so that your life kind of goes the way that you would like it to, ideally, it's important to kind of recognize when you are in your false vision, or if you don't even know what your vision is, which is totally okay too, because we start wherever we are. So if you don't have a vision, or if you realize that you have a false vision, right, and that you need to take steps to correct that, then I'd say the first step is do nothing. The first step is always do nothing. Step away, take a step back from whatever it is that you're doing, because whatever it is that you are doing is expending energy, and you need to cut that off. You need to cut off the flow, basically, of what isn't working. And so because we live in this kind of collective, especially in America, if you're watching from America, you clearly know what I'm talking about, but this collective soup of like, keep going, don't stop. And that's really, really counterproductive to when you need to make a pivot or adjust, or when you decide you've gone down the wrong path. You can't just, you need to like take a step back first, recover, figure out what you're doing before you go forward. And so that's is stop, listen to yourself, think, take as much time as you need to, really feel into what you really want out of your life. And a great way to kind of approach this is to ask yourself, what would I truly want my life to look like right now? Who do I want to be right now if none of the limitations that I think existed? All the ways that your vision can't get off the ground for whatever reason you've been told. If you want to be, I think a really great example is like wanting to be a movie star, wanting to be a famous writer, wanting to make $1 million if you've grown up poor, and of course I'm again using examples that are kind of commonplace or just very, very practical minded, because it's just easier to explain concepts that way. So regardless of whether that feels like it rings true to you or not, or maybe it feels unenlightened to you, I don't know. But for some people that vision is real, and it's not a problem necessarily. If maybe the fame thing is, but if you really feel in your heart that I want to be a great artist and I want to get credit for that, I think that's a beautiful thing. So my point being, whether it's $1 million that you want because you grew up poor and you don't want to feel that again, or you want to be known for your art, known for your writing, known for your acting, whatever it is. I'm using these examples because it's one of the things that are easily shot down. Like when you tell your mom or whatever when you're 10 that you want to be a famous rock star, it's like great, and then you're 16 and they're like, well, let's get realistic, And I'm not necessarily saying that is right or wrong either. What I'm saying is that it's very, very easy for us in our lives, whatever our vision is, whatever our vision or dream for our lives is, it is very easy for that to be derailed by peers, parents, teachers, society at large, for some reason telling you that you can't do the thing that you want to do. And so if none of those factors were at play, none of your limitations, there were no financial limitations, no practical limitations, no fear, no doubt, feeling like you can't, no shame, none of that. If none of that was a factor, what would you want for your life? And who would you want to be right now if there was no restrictions on who you could be? And I think that's really a good way to start, is just take away all of the arguments against what you're doing. Not that they're not valid, not that we're taking them away forever, because we're not trying to ignore what's in our field necessarily, but just put them aside for 1 minute. Look at just a clean, blank canvas of your life. Anything's possible. All you have to do is say it, right? And then what is that? And if you don't know, you don't know. Sit with it, right? If you do know, great. If you know and you're scared because there's all this crap in the way, great. Just figure out, what is the true vision? What is the true vision? It doesn't matter what's in the way of it right now. What is the true vision? Okay, and the thing about what is the true vision is that there are things in our fields, in our nervous system, in our minds, right, that are very, very, very loud. And sometimes they can be unconsciously loud, so we don't even realize what script is being run because we're not actually aware of it. We're just operating on what we've been operating on, semi-unconsciously. So I'm going to use the same example, the $1 million example, and like the I want to be a famous whatever example, right? So your vision is unique to you, and what you came here to do, what your soul came here to do, what your heart came here to do, is different from what anybody else came here to do. Even if it looks similar on the surface. For instance, my teacher always says, you know, your soul's purpose isn't your vehicle. Like if you are an actor, for instance, your soul's purpose isn't acting. But maybe you're really drawn to acting because acting is a great vehicle for your soul's purpose. But your soul's purpose is much deeper than that, and it's being expressed all the time, whether you're aware of it or not, more or less to, you know, functional or dysfunctional degrees as well. But we all are here to do something, and it's not something that can usually be said through words. It's something much, much deeper, and it's felt, and it's known, right? And, you know, if your soul's purpose is something about, you know, creation and interaction and perception and storytelling, and how those stories can teach us collective, you know, lessons that are really, really positive, and that's why acting is great for you, then that's why acting is great for you. But it could easily be, you know, you could be a teacher, you could be any of these other things, and it would still work. And so my point is, like, what's the real desire underneath? You know, what's the impetus, what drives you forward? And then how do you want to see that displayed in the world because of what you care about? You know, you're attracted to acting because you enjoy the craft, right? And so that's great. Do you want to be a famous actor? Why? You know what I mean? So you have to kind of, or do you just want to act because you enjoy the craft and it does things for you? And again, if you want to be a famous actor, you know, the false vision would be, it would be coming out of a place of wounding. It would be, I don't feel seen and I want people to see me, right? So there, right there, as you ask yourself, as you're kind of breaking this down, as you ask yourself, why do I want to be a famous actor? You're going to have to decide, is it because I don't feel seen? And what I really want, what the real vision is to be seen as my authentic self in my entirety and be accepted, right? Or do you want to be a famous actor because you know that you have a lot of really good things to say, and you want that to spread to as many people as possible, because that is what is going to truly drive you in a real sense, not a wounded sense, a real sense. Okay, so where's the wounding, and how is that operating in your life, right? And where's the real vision separate from your wounding, and how is that showing up in your life? Because if you continue to operate from the false vision, it's like chasing the famous actor thing, when you're not even really in touch with what you're even doing it for in a real sense anymore. Then you're going to run into trouble, basically. For me, it was music. I wanted to be a famous musician. I love music. Wanting to be a famous musician and pursuing that kind of destroyed my creativity, and I had to kind of regroup and recenter. Of course, I'm still young, everything's fine, nothing's been ruined, so I'm not saying that this is a catastrophe. I'm saying that I had to reframe my dream around music, because it was sort of half built on a false foundation. Once I gave myself my true needs in terms of like being witnessed, right, then I kind of realized that I love performing for people, but I only really love to make music and perform for me. So for me to act like it has to be all or nothing, it has to be I'm a household name where I don't make music, you know, that wasn't working for me and it wasn't authentic to me. I like to make music because it puts me in touch with my emotions, and therefore it's healthy for me. So it's a good vehicle for my soul's purpose, because what I do is emotional. I mean, what I'm doing here is, you know, what I'm doing with my clients is a very kind of emotional process. It requires vulnerability. It requires me to be very clear about my emotions so that I'm not putting those on other people. You know what I mean? So it's very important for me in ways that I didn't recognize when I was younger. Because I was extremely wounded, and that's what I was operating from. I wasn't really being conscious of, why am I doing this? Well, because it's healthy for me, right? So, do I still have this vision of my music spreading? Yes, I want to be a better musician. I want to play with other people more often. I want to be able to play bigger shows. I want to be able to have greater access. All of those things are true, but there's sort of a groundedness to it now of like, am I trying to manifest more? Yes, but do I already have what I'm trying to manifest? Yes. And so there's this sort of instance of like, oh, I already have it, so what I'm pursuing is growth. and that never ends, right? So it kind of gets me off the rat race into the present moment in my gratitude that I've actually already manifested the thing that I want, and then I get to continue to manifest it in bigger and better ways, and that's just a natural linear process at a certain point, right? If you do the work keeps happening. Things keep happening if you do the work. So that's my point, is what's the true vision, and how do you kind of identify the falsities around it, because there probably are some. We're human beings, we're traumatized, we make stories, and that's what ego does. Ego is this identification with what's happening instead of the observation of what is happening. And so, for instance, a really good aspect of ego, because ego is very clever, is like when we experience suffering or abuse growing up, we start to frame stories around why we're bad because we experience the suffering. Now, that's not true. Did you suffer? Yes. Part of being a human is to suffer. Did you suffer because you're bad, and do you need to create this big story around that suffering? No. And so, check your stories. What is your story around what you think you want? And what do you truly want once we drop the story, right? And you need to feel yourself and take time to actually be able to figure that out. As much time as you need. Maybe it takes 5 minutes, maybe it takes 5 months, but it's going to take as long as it takes, and when you know. Okay, so elemental manifestation, working with the air, silencing the false voices, silencing the false visions, or at least not silencing, but noticing and not acting on that, not identifying with what isn't truly real is really the important part. And then what is real, and sometimes the truth, we're resistant to the truth because we're afraid of what we'll find out, but often it's the anticipation that's worse than the outcome. And I've never discovered a truth that didn't set me free from whatever was binding me in that story, the false story. So, the pursuit of right relationship with air is the pursuit of truth. It's the pursuit of speaking that truth as well, noticing, identifying, and then speaking it. And you can always ask the air for help. So, look at your relationship with air. What's it like? What's your relationship with communication like? What's your relationship with your own mind like? What's your relationship with oxygen and breath? Is it something that you pay attention to, right? Paying attention to your breathing is a really good way to just kind of get into right relationship with air and the present moment, which is actually kind of essential for good manifestation. You need to be able to be present, because if you're always in your stories or your mind all the time, you're kind of always offshoot manifesting the stories that you're generating. And so it can be really discombobulating. And so the more you pay attention to your mind, to your breath, to the air itself around you and inside you, the more you kind of realize the oneness of that as well, the easier it's going to be to manifest. The more you're here now, right now, breathing, the easier it's going to be to manifest. Because truth kind of occurs in the moment, right? Because all there ever really is the moment. Time is an illusion, so yesterday is not right now, nor is tomorrow, right? Right now is right now, and it's the only thing that is truly here. So, that's a lot of things that I just said. Let's talk more about working with the air. If you feel like you just need to work with the air, like you don't have a good relationship with air, you need to tap into it. So I mentioned breath. I mentioned another good way is to actually practice talking to yourself in a mirror. Just talk to yourself, have a conversation. Also, scripting is really, really important. Writing out your thoughts so that they're clear to you. Even if they're negative thoughts, things you don't want to manifest, right, that you're writing down, that's fine. Write down all that stuff in a notebook, tear it up, burn it, throw it away, release it somehow, and that's actually a good manifestation ritual. Or you can write out the things that you do want to manifest as if they're already here, right? And you can offer them as a sacrifice to the air. You can set up a little shrine for air. My air shrine is just a singing bowl. That's all it is. But I talk to the air all the time. So you can set up a little shrine and with a power object. So for instance, the singing bowl is the power object. It's representing the air and my relationship with it. And so then it kind of gives you a place that you set up that you can then talk to the air. You can always go into meditation or a visualization and ask the air to take a form that you can speak to, and ask the air for a message. You can say, how can I best develop my relationship with you, and see what the answer is. That's a good thing to do. To be frank, every single thing that you speak is actually a mini air ritual. because, you know, as I said, we are creating our reality all the time as we speak it. So as we're speaking it, that is, you know, that reality, that frequency of what we're speaking is forming in the world. And so I'm not trying to tell you to watch everything that you say like a hawk. I mean, you can, but like you can also be obsessive about that, and that is not great. And so, you know, I just want to bring in, you know, just the meditation practice of when you notice that you have a thought that you don't want to think or whatever, you don't push it away or reject it. You go, oh, isn't it interesting that I'm having this thought? Why am I having this thought? Or just say, okay, I see you, and I'm going to come back to my breath now, or I'm going to restructure this thought, or I'm going to redirect my energy in some way so that this, you know, limited or negative thought pattern isn't taking your energy anymore, right? It is all patterns that are already set in motion, usually from childhood, so nothing is harming you that you weren't already doing, right? It's just a matter of, as we gain our awareness, it's important that we don't reject the things that are there, because it just makes it worse and it represses them. And that's something that a lot of manifestation coaches don't really teach, is it's kind of like, yeah, watch your negative thought patterns and erase and replace them, but that can easily kind of run into this outright rejection, right, of all the things that we're thinking that aren't pleasant. And that rejection doesn't make it go away, it buries it even deeper into shadow, which is not what we want at all. We're trying to clear these things out. So to clear them out, you air them, literally, you speak them, you write them, and then you release it, you throw it away, you give it back to the air, so it can be basically replaced, recycled and renewed, and back into universal energy, right? So don't hold on, let it go, all of those things, so that they're out of your field and they can be repurposed, right? It's a twofold thing. And that's a reciprocity. That's a reciprocal relationship with air and exchange of energy. It's all good. It's all a good thing. Okay, what else? Yeah, I think that is what I'm going to cover today, because I don't want to give you too much, and that's already a lot, and I'm kind of just rambling. So, in conclusion, manifestation, elemental manifestation, starts with the air, starts with vision, starts with watching our thoughts, being aware of what those thoughts are, noticing any patterned thoughts, positive or negative or neutral, and cultivating a relationship with the air. You can set up a shrine, you can focus on your breath, you can just do mindfulness breath meditation. I think that is the best way to create a natural relationship with the air, is to just do like observational breath and thought meditation, mindfulness, or anapana or whatever. Yeah, observing the breath. You can ask the air for help. You can, in your manifestations, you can ask for a message. You can even set up in your air shrine. You can also like get another power object and kind of set the intention that this power object represents your vision, and so you can set that with the air and kind of allow the air to be a facilitator and hold this container for you, for your vision to grow and to clarify. And you can just ask the air, this is my power object, put it on the shrine, this is my vision, will you help me crystallize and clarify this vision over time, right? And so that can kind of help you if you're struggling. Elements are really, really, really good at helping people with patterns of like getting unstuck, because they're just so big and they're so pure. And so elemental ritual is really, really, really key, I think. It's really helped me a lot. It's like the biggest shortcut ever. And the other important thing about being in right relationship with the air is that when you decide to come into a conscious relationship with manifestation, if you take it as far as it needs to go for it to be effective, it really is going to change your mode of operation in the world, because most of us operate kind of on this level of like belief that it is willpower that gets us what we want, and sometimes that can hurt others, of course, but even if it doesn't, it's just like you trying to impose your will on the world to make things happen and reacting to what's already there and whatever. The thing about true conscious manifestation, if you're doing it right, is that everything starts in the air, everything starts in the ether, and so like the seed of what you're trying to manifest is basically being commanded, and then it kind of sinks down into the manifested world, into the physical material world eventually, and then starts to spread itself. And so when you're operating from that mode of operation, you no longer have to impose your will the same way when it's like, you know, your will against the world or like whatever, like this kind of pushing against obstacles that most people do. that stops working. I mean, it doesn't work anyway. That's why most of us suffer unnecessarily. I mean, there's necessary suffering and there's unnecessary suffering. The way that we cause our own suffering and suffer over our suffering, part of that is this mode of operation of like trying to force our will or squeeze our will through these obstacles that we're perceiving. When you manifest from a conscious place, you are seeding your reality in the air, and it plants. It goes into the world, and so it's a mode of operation that is creative rather than reactionary, because you are creating things as you speak. That doesn't mean that obstacles don't come in, but there's a different relationship with them, because instead it becomes, because you're manifesting consciously, you're aware of what you're manifesting, you go, why did I manifest this? What is it trying to teach me? In what way is it trying to help me? And then how do I maneuver through it? And so everything becomes a conversation with life everything becomes a conversation with life rather than an issue of survival or coping, or simply reacting with what's already there, okay? Because you put it there. There's power in that recognition that you put it there, okay? And I just want to recap, one of the biggest hurdles with air is ego. The remedy is, as your mind speaks, as you hear your thoughts, you have to start to parse out what is true and what is false. And false does not mean what is invalid. False means, what is this belief, this thought, this desire, this wanting really coming out of, if it's coming out of false vision? What am I afraid of? What am I actually trying to accomplish? And so that gets that's part of the conversation. It's not a rejection piece. It's just, you start to learn your own ego by figuring out what is coming from the heart and what is coming from some sort of sideways story that isn't really real right here, right now. All right. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Please let me know in the comments or email me or whatever if you have questions, and I will try to answer them. And through this, obviously, because this is new, and I'm still kind of figuring out what I'm doing and how I'm going to speak here, if things feel like they're not being delivered in a way that you can absorb them, then I want to be able to, over time, kind of correct that and speak in a way that can really be broken down and digested. And so, yeah, let me know. Have fun with the air. I hope that you do something with it. I'd love to see some shrines set up, or at least just some reflection. So let me know how that goes. Please leave a comment if you would like to. Subscribe if this was helpful and you want to see the next video. I will try to put something out next week, and it will be part 2 of this elemental series, and I'm excited to see how this unfolds. And of course, if you'd like to schedule something with me, I still offer tarot readings, and I offer you can purchase a one-off, like a one manifestation coaching session, or you can purchase my 8-week program, which is of course what I would recommend. That's all available, and you can find that in the link below. Thank you. Take care, y'all, and I will see you next week.